for everybody who's out there, as me and Sir Daniel were talking this week, as we got the news that came out of Jackson, Mississippi, we're just like,
Mhm.
oh my God, like we got to talk about this to make sure that folks know, what's going on from people who live in Jackson, Mississippi. And Jackson is one of, and I've said this, I've been on the record as Jackson is one of my favorite cities because for whatever reason, the first time I went there, I felt like I had lived there before. It was very
Mm,
somebody in my past life, and this whoever body, whoever spirit I've come with,
yeah.
once lived in Jackson, Mississippi, because I got there and I was like, why does all of this seem familiar to me?
But you're absolutely right. It's you feel a kinship, and because we all need to feel a kinship to the brothers and sisters in Jackson,
Mhm,
because Q Points is about community. We
mhm,
are a community-based show.
mhm.
We talk about the community of music and musicians, but all those same people that watch, listen to the show, play music, DJ, are musicians, rappers. Somebody you know and love lives in Jackson, Mississippi, and needs to be heard about around what's happening right now. And J Ray, we have a special guest,
We do.
somebody who is an expert because they live in Jackson,
Right.
Mississippi, on what's going on. Um, our first guest,
Mhm.
because we've got a couple guests tonight. Our first guest is Marq McPherson, a case manager and health equity advocate in Jackson, Mississippi, who has spent much of their life spent in and around Jackson. They have embraced the city as a home space and have a drive to improve health equity outcomes for LGBTQ plus people of color and people with HIV. Um, People that live in the Jackson metro area. Mark is currently a graduate at the City University of New York and looks forward to using the knowledge gained to contribute to improving the quality of life for their community. Key Points family, please put your hands together and let's welcome Marq McPherson to the show.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor and a blessing to be here, just to share my experience and share the stories of so many people. Share the stories of what so many people in Jackson are currently going through.
Absolutely. So Mark, to bring folks up to speed, so Sir Daniel and I began to read the stories about the water crisis there, and I was immediately like, wait, the people can't use the water. All of the people. Like, it's not affecting a subset of the community, it's the entire community. And it was just like, oh my God. So one, how are you doing and how are you managing through this?
Um, I feel like I'm doing fine. I feel like I'm doing great. I am privileged to have the resources to actually go and get water for myself, get water for my family members. I have relatives who stay just outside of Jackson who are on a completely different water system to bathe and take wash clothes, do stuff like that. So I feel as though I'm doing excellent in comparison to some of the people who don't have access to those resources in the community.
Wow.
It's so wild that we take it for granted. Like we take little things like flushing the toilet for granted. If you've ever had any kind of disruption to your water in your home for like maybe it was maybe a couple hours or whatever, it was frustrating, right?
Mhm.
You couldn't bathe if you wanted to. You couldn't flush the toilet. You had to wait until it got fixed. Imagine going through this days and possibly weeks at a time. I legit
Yes.
when the news broke, I legit had deja vu of Flint, Michigan,
Mhm.
because not only is the water not flowing like it should be, but the water quality is an issue as well. You've mentioned in posts on Facebook about buckets, bottles, and jugs, and the many years of your life living in or near Jackson, Mississippi, and you've had to deal with buckets, bottles, and jugs of water. And if the water tastes funny or had an odd smell, it was completely ruled unsafe. This sounds like this is an ongoing thing in Jackson, Mississippi. So please tell everybody about your experience with just the quality of water in Jackson.
Yeah, this is definitely an ongoing experience. It's something that we've been dealing with for probably the past 40 years, if not more. It all started with a lot of the white flight that happened in the city in the 70s and 80s. The constant disinvestment in the city by people, companies, businesses, even the state of Mississippi has moved a lot of their state offices outside of the capital city of the state of Mississippi. So we have like different state agencies whose offices are in the suburbs. I think at this point, the only thing that's left in Jackson is probably the highway department and the state capitol building and governor's mansion. So
Wow.
it's just stuff like that. And then just to grow up in and around a city where your elder folks, they constantly having to use bottled water to cook the food that you want to eat on Sunday. You have to make sure, like, that was a part of me growing up. Like, a part of us growing up in the 90s was helping Big Mama get the water out of the car because she couldn't carry the big case of water. So that's just
Mm,
something that we've been doing for the better part of 20 or 30 years, at least for those of us who can't afford whole house reverse osmosis filtration systems. And I looked them up. They cost about $15,000 to $20,000 for a whole house
wow.
system. So that is definitely something that impacts a lot of the lower income people in Jackson, most of whom are people of color, specifically Black people.
Mm, wow. So let's just sit with that for a second because that is my throat just got dry when you said that because it's the anger that kind of rises up and the reality that this is something that has been brewing. I was reading somewhere else on Facebook where it was a person that said this has been a ticking time bomb, just as you indicated, for
Mhm.
years. We've known
Yeah.
that as residents.
Yeah.
And climb and this storm, this weather incident has now brought it to a head.
Right. And I'm thankful, in a way, I'm thankful that it did because we are starting to at least see some movement towards getting some permanent fixes, not just patch and tape and duct tape, because literally the Jackson water system is duct tape to death right now.
Yeah.
Much of the system is either knocking at 100 years old or is over 100 years old. And it's just been suffering from decades of people just doing little temporary quick fixes and just leaving it at that.
Mm. So before we as we definitely want to get your perspective on how folks can support, because that's one of the reasons why we definitely wanted to have you here. So we want to talk about that. But before we do that, um, describe what what a day entails for you during
Mm,
this crisis so that people can
So
understand.
so generally a day is making sure that I get down to my relative's house so that I can take a shower, brushing, making sure I have my bottled water so that I can brush with. At least I don't. Let me rewind back. Let me rewind back. Now that we have water pressure again, I'm not. I can take a shower in my own place now. But just overall, just making sure that I have my bottled water ready to brush my teeth, making sure that there's some water ready to make my coffee in the morning, just making sure that I carry a bag full of bottled water with me to my job, just in case if I get thirsty over the course of the day, or I need to wash my hands in some water is not, that is considered safe. Remember, I work in a healthcare facility, so we have to make sure that hygiene and all of that is kept on in top notch. A lot of times, at least the past few days when we haven't had water pressure at all, just having to adjust when I ate and drank because I didn't want to end up being somewhere where I needed to use the restroom but didn't have access to a flushing toilet. Just making sure that our lives revolve around that. Just um, the other day, just Monday, I'll use that as an example. I found out that there was some bottled water in one of the local stores, so I literally left work. I just told just told my colleagues, "Hey, I got some important business I need to attend to. Left work, ran and got the water and came back to work because I wanted to make sure that I had water at home to be able to cook, clean, do everything that I need. And that has really been our lives, like I said, for the better part of about 20 to 30 years.
Wow.
Oh, and I did mention the winter storm last year, the big winter storm that took out a lot of the electricity in Texas.
Mhm.
It also came through here, and it also damaged or hurt part of our water infrastructure, and the city of Jackson was actually without water for a month and a half then. We didn't make the
Really?
national news that time. Our mayor actually went to the state and asked for help. The same governor that's having all the press conferences and everything now, he basically told Jackson to kick rocks. There were other cities that had priority. There were other cities that
Mm.
needed the state's help more than Jackson does. And Jackson is the largest city in the state. It is the state capital. But we are treated like the stepchildren of Mississippi simply because our leadership is overwhelmingly Democratic, and our state leadership is a GOP supermajority.
Wow. So is it safe to say call this environmental racism?
Yes.
Mm.
you know, I did not take any second to answer that question. It is definitely environmental racism. It is racism. It is systemic racism. It is all of the isms that plague our society right now, especially when it comes to how Black people and people of color are treated.
Mm.
Wow. So as J Ray alluded to earlier, we want to, of course, give you this platform, give you this moment to reach out to the Q Points community and those beyond the Q Points community and let everybody know how we can help. Because some of us are sitting at home thinking, well, wow, that sucks. There's probably nothing I can do. But there are some things that we can do.
Yes, definitely. There are plenty of things that people can do, and this is in no way an exhaustive list. I encourage people to go on Google and literally do a Google search. How can I help Jackson, Mississippi right now? But two of the organizations or entities that seem to be actually doing the work that I've personally vetted to make sure that they are actually serving the community is the Mississippi Food Network. It provides food for a lot of individuals in the state of Mississippi who are low income, who just make slightly above not being eligible to qualify for food stamps or other food subsidies. So definitely donate to the Mississippi Food Network. Another organization that came about after the emergency declaration had been declared for the city of Jackson is the Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition. You can definitely donate to them. I, I I hope that the link will be posted somewhere, but you can donate to them. And also, if you are within a reasonable driving distance of the city of Jackson and you would like to come and help volunteer to pass out water or anything, definitely go to the Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition's website so that you can sign up or ask how you can volunteer your services to help distribute water to people who need so.
Wow. And we do have both of those links posted in the chat, and we will also make sure that they're in the description so that when people are listening, they can participate, they can contribute. So, our last question, because we're a music podcast and you are one of our listeners as well. What song is keeping you inspired right now?
So back in 2018, around the time that our current mayor, Mayor Chokwe Attal Lumumba, was elected, um, August Green did a cover of "Optimistic" by the Sounds of Blackness featuring Brandy, and the video was filmed in Jackson. And that song has definitely been keeping my spirits uplifted and keeping the hope alive. It just serves, and the video just shows like we are a tough breed of people in Jackson. We've been going through like oppression and depression all of these decades, but yet we're still thriving, we're still surviving. So that is definitely the song. I definitely encourage anyone to check it out. Optimistic by August Green and Brandy.
I love it. I love it. Well, Marq, J Ray and I, we stand with you in solidarity along with the residents and the brothers and sisters of Jackson, Mississippi. We're praying that this is remedied soon, and we would love to get an update from you whenever. If you need to more information to be gotten out there, more help or whatever, we're there for that. But if you need to come back and tell us some good news, we're there for that as well. So we again thank you so much. You and I were talking before we came on air. You and I both do some very heavy lifting out in the community as far as the work
Yes.
we do. And so to do that on top of dealing with this crisis is just a traumatic experience all around. So, I pray for you and that you're covered in that respect as well, because while you're out trying to help people, you need to be lifted up
Mhm.
and covered as well. So,
Yes.
Marq McPherson is that guy, is that person here on Q Points and doing all the work. And we love and respect you, Marq. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing your perspective on the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi.
Thank you so much for having me.